Come on, Alliance family. Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Gina. Andy, Jane, thank y'all so much. Gosh, dang, look at this family. Woo! I heard that we were having to bring in extra chairs. Is that right? We're blowing this thing up. We are blowing this thing up. Oh my gosh, so grateful for y'all being here. My name is Jake Joseph. My beautiful wife, the better looking half, right there, the Miss Beret Joseph. Well, hey, is it okay if I just talk to you guys? Like friend to friends, just have a conversation, we've been here, 4 years now, and through the time, we've met some amazing leaders, we've met some amazing coaches, and that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Like Gina had mentioned, being coachable and teachable. So when I think about that, I kind of go back to who I am, where I started, being a kid, and really, let me ask you guys a couple questions, okay? And this is one thing, being coachable and teachable, this is something I learned, okay? And this is what I learned from Mr. Andy Albright. When we are asked a question, it's a simple answer, right? I was taught that when someone asks you, hey, how many dials did you make? You don't go out there and say, oh, I made all the dials, right? You don't go say all the dials. It's like 150, right? So it's just yes or no. Yeah, let me hear some noise. So who would like to make more money faster than less money slower? Right? Simple. Thank you. We're all good. We're being coachable and teachable. Who would like to get great, not just good? Okay. And kind of coming back from what we had yesterday when Andy was talking about, who would like to be set up on the right track, to be headed in the right direction at our destination point that Andy was talking about yesterday, where we wanted to be 5 years into the future? Like, who would like to get set up on that track and learn how to do that? Right? Okay, thank y'all. So, my wife and I, we've been together, 10 years now. Coming up on 11 in April, huh, hon? And I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth when I'm growing up, right? I just knew, like going through school, that I was just really good at doing what like the teacher said. So like I was never really super smart. It was just that whatever they told me to do, I was willing to do it. Does that make sense? So it was, when growing up and when Bray and I met, we ended up, as some of you might know the story, is we were teenage parents, right? And so a lot of the stuff we ended up just having to figure out ourselves. And so when we found out the time in which we were going to have a kid at 17 years old, it was like, holy crap. And we ended up seeing two different sides of like, hey, who's coaching, whose leadership do we take? Do we take this side where they're telling us, hey, like what Brian Adams was saying, hey, you can't do it, you're not good enough, you're just a kid. You're just a kid. How are you supposed to raise a kid, right? Or did we take the coaching and the teaching from the ones that believed in us and say, hey, you got this. You're gonna kill this thing. You're gonna do great. And so I guess if I can just be real with y'all, is if I can do this thing, so can all of you. I was just young, dumb, full of ambition, right? and that's what I was just focusing on. So one thing, I'm standing up here too, and from what Coachable and Teachable has got me is like, I get to share a stage with, look at all these posters up here. Like, look at that. It's just unbelievable. So I was told that there's a difference between being coachable and teachable. So like growing up, the teachers are telling you exactly what to do, right? And that's good. We need to be told like, hey, someone tells us something to do, that's what we're going to do, right? Let's just listen to them. But then being coachable, think about it. Who's played sports in here? Yeah? Okay, wow, good majority. So when we think about being coachable, it's like put the mentality of put me in, coach. It's reaching out. It's saying, hey, I need help. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So there's a difference between, hey, take their advice and do that, but then there's also a difference between reaching out constantly and say, hey, put me in, coach. There we go. Okay, so I was, through this process of talking about what I was going to be doing up here, through Mark and Andy and Mike and Noel and Joseph, it was just to keep things simple. So I want you all to walk out of here with some simple, some basics, right? I don't want to complicate things. This is simple, not complicated, right? So again, it's like, if I can do it, you all can do it. So a couple of main basics, right? 3 basics to remember. I'm going to touch on each of them. Is communication. Communication is key. Taking action is massive. And staying humble while staying consistent. Okay? So coming back to communication, massive communication. Okay? So when we're being coachable and teachable, we have to be calling nonstop. Like, we've seen Megan Wood issued $1 million in premium last year. You heard Mike and Noel saying yesterday on how she was calling them like 40 times a day. Like, that's massive communication, okay? So let me hit y'all with this. This is what I noticed. If you are not taking your upline's time, like if you are not calling them and asking them questions nonstop, I'll tell you what, someone else is. So why not it be you? Why not you be the one who takes up all of your leaders' time, all your coaches' time, right? It's just, and when we do, the times to do that, the times to be coachable, teachable when we're communicating is not only, I think, has everyone heard of like the 2 lines to stay between? It's like high line and then the low line, like Andy's talking about. We want to kill ourselves and then we want to be up here, right? So the key is staying between those lines. And sometimes we're going to get low, sometimes we're going to get high, and that's fine, But the key is to communicate all the way through, okay? So in times of low, so I'll share a story. When I was getting started with this, we had made a little office out of our house, and I had taken the doors off of a closet, and I shoved a desk in there, and I just started going to work. And I saw the opportunity to build a business, and I was just calling the phones nonstop, sharing the opportunity with 50, 60, 70 people a week. And here I am busting my butt, knowing I'm doing the right thing, right? And what ended up happening is my father, he drove all the way from New Jersey to hang out with us. And he saw me doing that. And he told me, he said, Jake, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? I'm working, Dad. He's like, Jake, what are you doing? He's like, you're lying to these people. You're giving them false hopes. You're taking these young kids and you're telling them they can get rich in insurance. And to be clear, like Vray and I, we were just young, dumb, thinking we could get rich in insurance, right? Right? And so I was just sitting there and I was like, and me, I'm an emotional man. I was just like crying. I was like, this is my dad telling me. I love the man, but he was basically telling me, like, what are you doing? You're a failure. Why did you quit the movie job? Like, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? And I was just I was on the brink of quitting. I was on the brink of giving up. And I was like, maybe he's right. What the hell am I supposed to do? Like, who am I to tell people this, right? And so it was Joseph Dukes who I called, and I said, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think this is the right thing for me. And so part of that is to tell you all is, who are you seeking coaching from? Are you getting coaching from the right people? Okay? So when I called Joseph, he just said, hey man, do you believe you're doing the right thing? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, cool. Well, hey man, you're gonna have people. They're gonna say, oh, you can never do this, and then it's gonna get into, oh, I always knew you could do it, and then I'm proud of you. So it's reaching out and getting coaching from those people when not only when you're low, but when you're high. Multiple times have I called Mike and Noel when I was fired up out of my mind, and they were like, hey, that's awesome, we celebrated. They were like, keep pushing. I know you got more goals, so keep pushing. Taking action. No one likes talking to someone who doesn't listen to them. Okay, so if I can just be real with you, don't bother asking a question if whatever answer you get back you're not gonna do. Like, come on, don't waste your own time. Don't waste your upline's time. Just again, I just want to have a conversation with you guys and be real. Okay. When you ask the question and you get the answer, part of being coachable and teachable is clarify it and then just do that. So, hey, double check, let me make sure I'm hearing you right, and then go and do it, okay? And the other thing is this, it's like we do realize how this business works, right? Like when you're building a business and you have an upline and they're helping, you got your mentor and your teacher, it's like they're helping you because we all know how this works. When you bring on someone on your team and they write a policy, you make money, right? So I'm just like, why would they tell you wrong? Why would they tell you wrong? So I'm just like, all right, stay humble. Stay humble, stay consistent, okay? So we're gonna have some times, again, not get too high, not get too low. This is the one time, we talk about making decisions. This is the one time we don't want to make a decision, and the decision that we don't want to make is thinking that we know it all. So again, staying humble, staying consistent, constantly asking for help, okay? And all the top leaders, they continue to get coaching. All these people on the front row, all these leaders, all those VIPs out there, why do you think they're there? Is because they've stayed humble, they stay in the fight, and they're continuing to ask questions. So another personal story is that, being a young father, I had never held a newborn baby, right? And so my wife, I was 17 years old. Like a 17-year-old, you don't get to hold a newborn baby much, right? And so I was like scared to death because I figured whatever I did or didn't do was life and death for my daughter Raina, right? So I remember they sent us home with and here they are. They probably did this because of the fact that they were about to hand over two 17-year-olds a newborn baby, and they were like, are they gonna drop it? They literally walked us out to the car and they were like, let's make sure this car seat's in there because these kids don't know what the hell they're doing. But I remember the doctor told me, when a doctor tells you something, you listen to them, right? So when the doctor told me, hey, you need to make a chart of every time she spits up, she pees, she poops, she's crying, and this and that, and you should have seen, like, Ray, you remember this? I had like an iPad, and it was like to a T, every single time. They told me every single time they did it, mark the time, and you should have seen. It was a long list. Like, it just kept scrolling the iPad, and there was times where it was like she didn't poop, and I was like, oh my gosh, is she about to die? She didn't poop on time. And it was just like I was doing exactly what they said, right? Or at least I thought. And so it was just taking what they told me to do. And so to this day, my daughter is healthy. Being a teenager, we did have her. So damn. So that. To be clear, that was in high school. That was just a couple years ago. I did learn how to hold her. I did learn how to change her diapers. But no, we can take that off now, Billy. Thank you. So we got that. But the other thing too, I used to work in construction before this, so that was a time where I was being coachable and teachable. Now again, I was a young, dumb, full of ambition, right? I thought I knew everything. So when I worked in construction, a lot of what I started off was just like sweeping, right? That's a simple task, right? We all think we know how to sweep, pick up a broom and sweep, right? And I remember I went up to this bucket and I grabbed a broom out of there, and a guy next to me who was doing it for a bit, right? He was like, dude, you're grabbing the wrong broom. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's a freaking broom. Like, give me a break, dude. Stop being So I picked it up, and the way it worked is to sweep a big area like the size of this room really good to get all the dust for the movies up. You'd have to get this compound and like spread it all across the floor, and what it would do is it'd pick up the finer dust. But the reason this guy was telling me to grab the right broom is because the fact that the bristles that I had were coarse and you were supposed to have the finer ones. So I sweep this whole damn room that's as big as this place, and I go and I'm like, I look back and there's stuff still everywhere. I was like, what the hell is just a broom? Like, this guy, what he was telling me was to help me. What he was telling me was to help me. And so whatever you heard of that, I mean, do whatever you want with that. But what he was telling me was there to help me, right? Let's see here. So a couple pieces that I wanted to share in our business is a 3 sections. So how to be coachable and teachable in sales, recruiting, and then personal development and business, okay? So, oh man, I've got some stories. So as humans, we have what we call, like what I've heard of is that microwave mentality, where we want things like immediately, right? Can we all agree with that? And so that's kind of how I was. And so when it comes to, let's talk about making phone calls. Would we all agree that's a big part of our business is making phone calls? So when we're making phone calls, if you all haven't heard of this, when we're making phone calls, we're making dials. We call a lead, we call it 3 times in a row. But one of the golden rules that I was taught by my buddy Joseph Dukes was the 3 contact and no appointment rule. So basically what that means is you go out, if you talk to 3 people in a row and you don't book an appointment, you need to pick up the phone and call for coaching and call for help. Well, what do you think I did with my microwave mentality, young, dumb, and full of ambition was going to do, right? You'd think I would have called. My first experience with it, I remember I was sitting down and I was making my dials. I was making all the dials at my kitchen counter, and I had a big stack of leads, and I had my water. All my stuff was going right. Well, I made a contact, and I was like, all right, cool, I'll brush it off, go again. I made a second contact. All right, cool, I'll brush it off, go again. A third, a fourth, 5, 6, 7, all the way 18 contacts in a row, and not a single damn appointment. So now, please, so there's some things that I'm sharing with you that you should do. Don't do that, please. Don't do that. I'm trying to be real and share some things that I've learned so that way you don't have to go through it. 18 contacts, 0 appointments, and I called Joseph, and it was like, the words that came out of his mouth were basically like this: if your wife has not killed you yet, I will be there pretty soon. And I was like, well, shit, Joseph. How, cuz, why? And it was simply because he wanted to help me, right? So when we have these types of things, it's like when we're making our phone calls and we have 3 contacts in a row, let's stop. Let's put down the phone and let's call for coaching. Let's call for help. Again, it takes that massive communication, right? And when we're doing that, a key tip for coaching, being coachable and teachable, right, is let them know what's going on, ask the questions, and then please just shut up. Again, if I can be real, just ask the question, just shut up and listen. Take notes, listen with your ears, and physically listen too. So that way we can, again, clarify and make sure that we're hearing it right. So I've had that one. But then also, hey, on the better side, I finally got to the point making phone calls. Because again, if you saw me when I first started doing this, you would have been like bird's eye view. You'd been like, dude, you should quit now. Like, please do yourself a favor and quit now, okay? But then it got to the good times where I started implementing that every time I hit 3, and I still do it. Like the other week, I called Pam Alara because I was like, Pam, I don't know what's going on. I talked to 3 people and there's no appointments. You just consistently do that, taking action with those and consistently doing it. I got to the point where I remember my first big I still remember this to the day. I remember that I had, a fat stack of leads, and I was making phone calls, and I was up to it was like 24 contacts, 25 contacts, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, that's a lot of contacts. I remember what Joseph told me last time. And but then he said, hey, well, buddy, what are your numbers? And I was like, well, I've got 12 appointments. And he was like, why are you calling me, dude? I was like, well, I don't know. I got 3 contacts and no appointments, so I was told to call you, right? So I hope what you see is, hey, you can be like, hopefully you don't do what I do, but you can be in a spot where you know nothing about it, and through that communication, through taking the action, and by consistently doing it, you can get good, whether it's making the phone calls or so on. We had a great example. Our buddy Jeff in Phoenix. He was making phone calls for the first time like these last week or 2 weeks. And it was crazy because he was making phone calls and he had 3 contacts, no appointment, right? And he had picked up the phone and called for coaching, and he was being teachable, right? So he said, hey, this is what's going on. And he told me what he was saying, and I was like, hey man, do this. You sound a little bit like a telemarketer, just real even keel, just straight across, right? The crazy part was he called me back and he was like, bro, I booked 2 appointments. This is awesome. And I was like, right, I know, right? But the crazy thing was this. I wasn't so much fired up about the fact that he booked the 2 appointments. It was the fact that he called for coaching and he actually put into use what we had shared with him. Hey, do this and then call me back. And so it was crazy because, again, it wasn't the fact that he booked the 2 appointments. It was the fact that he had gone out and actually applied it after the fact that we showed him that little trick, right? Next part. So we've obviously got, the dialing, the dialing side. Well, what about in the appointment side? Being coachable and teachable in the home. Gosh, dang, if I can just, who's out there ever run appointments before? Okay, good. Who has ever heard of pick up the check or pick up the phone? Has anyone heard of that? Okay, and I'm not trying to make this into a whole sales training, but being coachable and teachable from the home, I promise you, please, I'm telling you, pick up the check or pick up the phone. We are here to help you. Again, why would we tell you wrong? So please, it's like you can go in there not knowing anything and use that one little tip there and be able to help, close 50% of every single family that you see, right? So some key tips from there is, again, call from every single home, okay? That's a big part of being coachable and teachable. Call after every appointment to debrief. Whether you help them or you didn't help them, call after every single home. Again, massive communication. Call after every single appointment so that way you can debrief and not with the client being in front of you, you can kind of figure out what was going on, right? Call for coaching at the end of every run day. Once you have a full day of numbers, again, it just comes back to the massive communication of figuring out, hey, what went right, what went wrong kind of thing. And then again, coming back to the communication, schedule calls at the end of every week with your upline. So that way you can get the coaching and the training that you need, so that way you can figure out, hey, was this a week that I was going in the right direction or in the wrong direction? Like, for example, there was a week just a couple weeks ago where I went in there and I reviewed a policy, and I honestly thought, it was with a company. I thought it was a whole life, right? Because I got bought up in their story and this and that kind of stuff. And by calling from the home, I ended up finding out that, well, in reality, it was one of these increase in terms. I called my wife because I couldn't get anyone. I called Bray, and she told me, hey, double check this. And I was like, I did what she said, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, it is actually one of those. And then I called back from the home again. I talked to Joseph, and he was like, hey, based off her health, I think they lied on that application, or they didn't even ask her the health questions. And sure enough, yeah, that was wrong too. So by being coachable and teachable, not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping all these families that we're looking to protect out there that need us, right? Another big part of the sales side of being coachable and teachable is the leads, right? Leads. I know we've talked about it a little bit already this week. We were dumb enough to think we could get rich in insurance. So we were just like, hey, we'll do whatever the hell we need to do in order to make this thing work. So when we first started, we were just like, hey, just drop $1,300. It was like right off the bat, $1,300 in leads, bam. And then set up one of those things we call GMR, right? Because we saw what all the top producers were doing and what Mike and Noel and Joseph and Jera were telling us, we were like, well, if they're telling us to do it, we're just going to do it. So again, in all aspects of this business, with the dials, with running the appointments, with calling the leads and lead investment, it's just whatever, again, just being real, whatever they're telling you to do, just do that, please. Like they're telling you for a reason, okay? It's just really walking in faith too, right? These leaders, these mentors, it's just they've been there, they've done it, so just walking in faith, knowing that good stuff's gonna happen. Oh, let's see. There we go. Getting into recruiting and building a business. Oh gosh, I thought I had to be coachable and teachable when I was in the sales side. When you're building a team, when you're building a business that's going to drive your family's future, like for financial freedom, you've definitely got to be coachable and teachable here, okay? Because again, I had no idea what I was doing. But just being willing and open to again, whatever our uplines were telling us. Like I remember when Joseph, he was talking to us, he was like, hey, send me a list of 10 names. And I was just like, okay, yeah, sure, here you go. It was just so simple. It was like he told me to do something, and then I just made sure to go and do it, right? It was in those weeks where I first started, like talking to 50 to 60 people, sharing the opportunity with, and I was getting no traction. I was having the hardest time, and this is where my ego was coming into the way again. And I just remember Mike and Noel just calling them constantly, and they were like, all right, what are your numbers? And I was like, I talked to this many people, I got 0 people signed up in class, and it was terrible. It was a big mess. And they walked me through, hey, are you doing this? Are you building a relationship? Are you connecting with them? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And just by simply implementing that and consistently following up with them and retracing, like going over my numbers again and again, we were finally able to find a way where we could actually figure this thing out, right? A big part of being coachable and teachable in this business too, and it's just dependent on what you want, right? I know everyone here is at different pieces of their life and different parts of their business and so on. When you want to build this thing massive, like you want to go partner, like who would want to go partner in this room? Okay, so we all want to go partner, right? We have to be willing, definitely being coachable and teachable in the business and like the investment side of things, okay? We have to, because for me, I knew nothing about it. All I thought growing up was like, hey, the more money you got in your bank account, the better, right? So let's go back maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago. We were at this really cool place. We got invited to go to an integrity tour, and we got to hang out at the Dallas Cowboys practice field. And we were there, yeah, we're in Dallas, that's not surprising. We were there at the Dallas Cowboys practice field, and we're fired up, right? We're just fired up. We're like so excited. Ray and I are so excited to be at the table, be a part of the group. And we're there. We're actually in Jerry Jones's suite. Is that right? Where's Diane? Was that right? Is that Jerry Jones's suite we were in? That really cool room? Okay. Yeah, we were like in this crazy cool place, and we're feeling good, and we're in a part in our business where Ray and I are doing pretty good. We're making money, right? And we're sitting there, and that's the cool thing about having these leaders and these coaches is that we get to associate. I mean, you get to associate with the CEO of the company, Andy Albright, right? So we're sitting there, and we're hanging out, and we're talking, and he's asking us, you know, when you talk to Andy, he wants to know about you and how your business is going. And he's asking Ray and I, hey, how are the kids? How's this and that? How's business? How's cash flow? And we're like, it's good. It's good. And as you know, we're all taught, you know, with Andy, what he's taught us is that the quality of your questions control the quality, like end up helping you with the quality of your life, right? So he asked a specific question of, hey, how much y'all got in the bank? We looked at each other and we're like, well, 50,000. And we're like, sweet. That's like, we were all fired up. We're like 50 grand in the bank, hell yeah. And in Andy's mind, he's like, wait, what the heck? He's like, they got 50 grand in the bank. What? There's so much that could be done with that. So he starts sharing these different pieces with us. It's like, hey, staff and office and all this other stuff and traveling and going to grow. I think this TV went off, by the way, little notes. But we just took that coaching because we knew that Andy is in a spot where we wanted to be in. Okay? He was in a spot where we wanted to be in. And so we literally took that teaching and we went with it. We just followed up with massive action, and we started investing that we had a bunch of money in the bank. We started investing it in flights to travel. We started investing it in office space and staff, investing in leads for our agents and all these other pieces of things, and just doing exactly what he was telling us to do, what Mike and Noel were telling us to do. And right after that, like, we started traveling. We started seeing, we were traveling all across the country, seeing our team and helping them and getting the nitty-gritty with them. And it was the craziest thing because we saw our unique riders go up. We saw the amount of apps issued every month go up. We saw overall premium go up. We saw all of our agents' bank accounts start to go up. It was the craziest thing, right? And we loved it. It was like, oh my gosh. So it was just something as simple as taking the coaching and the teaching and putting it back into use, right? The crazy part is this. So we were like at a high there. We took it all, we were doing it. And then, again, communicating in the lows of lows, right? So when we had done all of that, well, obviously we were spending some money. And I remember I called Mike, and I was freaking out. Like I thought I was going to have a heart attack or I had an ulcer. I think you remember this, Mike. And because we were freaking out because we looked at our bank account, and like in 2 weeks we had spent $20,000. I was like, whew. I was like, oh my gosh, Frey, I don't know if this is good or not. And it was just being vulnerable, it was being open and sharing what was going on. And he, again, Mike's good. He was asking us some questions. Well, hey, what'd you spend it on? You didn't go get, a bunch of steak and lobster, and you didn't go to the casino or buy a new car or this and that. I was like, no, we spent it all on the business, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. And he's like, hey, have faith. You guys are doing good. You're going to see a return on it. You're spending it in the right places. Just keep asking the questions you're asking and just keep doing that. So I was just, again, having those leaders and those coaches to just lean on is massive. Another part, going to grow. Like when you hear Andy talk about, I remember very specifically, I think it was Brandon, you were talking about it. You had a chat with Andy at one point in time about building the business all across the country, right? And Andy, I remember Andy was on a TWC, he specifically said, you're not going to build it sitting on your damn couch. Like, what the hell? What do you think, right? So getting off the couch and going to grow and putting that in. So like for those of you who are wanting to go partner and have a massive business, taking that teaching and taking that coaching of going to grow and going and seeing people is going to be massive. Big parts, getting into like the mindset and the personal development. I remember one of the first times we were able to sit down with Mark Cassetta, Ray and I, and have a one-on-one conversation with him. We went through a bunch of questions. I remember just asking him one last thing was, hey, what other things, like what's one thing that you could share with us that we should be doing, right? If there's one piece of coaching that we should be doing, what should we be doing? And he said, don't stop working on yourself. Don't stop with the personal development. Read all the books, go to all the events, keep getting better, the 6 inches between our ears. And so a big part of that, and again, everyone too, like give yourself a pat on the back, is being here. This is massive. So our first event, our first national convention was within like a month of us getting licensed. So the crazy part is I know some of you are here who probably heard of this for the first time like last week or yesterday and are here. So again, just walking in faith, that is awesome. But not missing a single event. We haven't missed a single event since we've been here, and it's made all the difference for us, right? So being coachable and teachable in when you come to these events and when there's these speakers on stage, like you guys are in for a treat with everyone that we're going to have up here. But just listening, putting into action what you're learning here, having an action plan for when you leave. That's one of the biggest things. It's like you can get all motivated and fired up here, but having a plan when we leave is going to be a big piece. Another part of being coachable and teachable is these national calls. We have every week we have a man who's worth, he's got 2 jets. He's having a 3rd one built. He's all over the place traveling with his family, going to Africa, all these places. This man's worth, I can't even put a number out. I don't even know. But you have a man that's giving you an hour and a half of his time every week on our Wednesday call, the TWC. That happens every week. Like, why not be on there? You have to. To be coachable and teachable, be on those calls, every single one of them, the activity call, all of them. Because you never know the one thing that's going to change. And I remember just a couple weeks ago, he had Mark Cassetta on there. And Andy and Mark were talking, and they were talking about the fat stack story. So this is a big part in being coachable and teachable, okay? Is having the right coach, is having the right teacher. Make sure you're talking to someone and getting help from someone in a position where you want to be. How big is their stack? We've got people here who are making $80,000, $100,000 a month, and they're willing to help you. Like, come on. But a big part, like obviously with my topic, is it's one of the 8 steps. Being teachable. So reading books is going to be massive, but just taking these, like this one here, we were told that if we read this every month for a full year, that we would make 100,000 or be on track to make 100,000. And well, shit, I think, and this is what we were told too. Andy tells us, he says, if you don't do it, then I'll pay you the difference. If you go over, you owe me money. So I think, so Veray and I, Andy, I believe we owe you 30 grand. Because it worked. It worked. But a big part of this, if I can share with you all, I read this the other day in a book that Joseph Dukes told me to read a book, and he probably told me a year ago, and now I'm reading it. And in that book, it was Tax-Free Retirement. It says, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And that hit me so hard, because I was like, I'm still Jake. Like, my wife still knows I'm Jake. I'm just some goofy guy. You've got this, you're probably out there thinking, like, what is this teenager who doesn't even know how to use a Jimmy doing up here talking on stage, right? It's like, what the? So I'm still Jake, but again, at the same time, I'm a different Jake, okay? And so I don't know what I don't know. So that's where I'm constantly asking for advice. Just we got to constantly be asking for help, calling, and asking those questions, right? And again, coming back, all the top leaders, they're coachable and teachable. They're constantly asking for help. They're constantly advising and seeing, hey, where can we get better? Where can we grow? So again, kind of recapping those 3, just again, if I can help you all keep it simple, just like a simple place to start is communicate, take action, and stay humble and stay consistent. No one likes a know-it-all. Just be open, and do what that is. But I know I've got a couple pictures that I did want to bring up, because I've built some really great relationships with some of my best buds in this business. So are we able to bring up some of those pictures? And the crazy thing is another part about being coachable and teachable, be fun to be around. Like, don't be a stuck-up jerk. If I can be honest with you, don't be an a-hole. Just be fun to be around. Be a friend. Get to know people. Like, every time Joseph is always telling me how much snow he's got up on the mountain. Like, every time we're talking, it's about skiing, or he's asking me about my dirt bike. So when being coachable and teachable, be fun. Just have fun with it. Be a friend. Build those relationships. And I'm so glad we've done that, because again, we've got some really good buddies in this business now. Do you guys see pictures? No? I think there's a couple pictures. We'll keep going. Oh, can we go to the next one? They already saw that bald face. Oh, there we go. The Jara Gonzalez. Let's give it up for her. Thank you so much, Jara, for sharing this with us. Forever grateful. It's changed our lives. It's changed our kids' lives. It's going to change our grandkids and our great-grandkids' lives. This was actually a picture at our first hotspot with the Noel Leventovich in Albuquerque. This is when it all changed. So I thought that was a pretty cool picture to have up. If we can go to the next one. Oh, there's my I guess that one got snuck in. I didn't remember putting that one up there. That's my beautiful wife and my beautiful girls. So here we are. There we are now. So they're still alive. We kept them alive. They're good. We did what the doctor said. If we can go to the next one. That was cool. That was a dinner that we got invited to with Andy and Jane in Aruba, our first trip with the company, and it was so much fun because we got to get so much advice and coaching and teaching. But it blows my mind that here I am, 26 years old, and I've been able to build a relationship with a CEO of a company, a man that's again just so successful and just willing to help you, right? So just building a great relationship there. Can we go to the next one? Mike, that was our second trip. That was to that was in Aruba still. That was Mike and Noel. And again, just constant communication with them. They've helped us so much. Forever grateful for you both. But please build those relationships. And the next one. Gosh, that guy makes me cry. That is one of my best buds. So please, please build those relationships. Find a coach. Be teachable. Keep it simple. Keep it basic. I'm Jake, and that was my message.